Hey guys, welcome back to my Reader's Journal, or welcome if you're brand new. For this video, I'm going to be going over Looking for Alaska by John Green. Now, this book is one of the first books that John Green has ever written, or probably the first book that he's ever written. It was published back in 2005. I read it when I was in high school, and I remember not liking the book. But I had my John Green readathon and decided to reread it, and I've reread it. I have my thoughts, so let's get started with that. So as always, I'm gonna have a spoiler-free section, then followed by a spoiler section. But I'm gonna be honest, the spoiler-free section is gonna be pretty short because I'm gonna rant about this book. I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, I did not like this book. I will say and I will admit that John Green's writing and the quality of his books does improve. And like the thing is, I don't even know how to start off this big review because even though there's a lot that I can rant about, there's like nothing like of significance in my opinion that warrants a big rant, if that makes sense. But anyways, non-spoiler, I didn't like the story, I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the character arc that the main character goes through. um Miles is someone who could have easily been a character that anybody could have rooted for, but that doesn't happen. And I'm just, I didn't like the book, I didn't like it, which this book has a whole award. Like, look at that. This book has a whole award, and I didn't like it. Where I'm gonna end my spoiler-free section because I just have to rant about this book. Like, I'm sorry, I just had to rant about it. So if you haven't read the book, now's the time to click off. If you've read it, or if you have not read it and you don't care about spoilers, then we're gonna move forward. I hated the fact that Miles was obsessed in a sense, like just weirdly obsessed with someone he had just met, someone who has a boyfriend already, someone who has already drawn the line and told him that he is just a friend, like Miles is just a friend. Like Alaska wasn't leading him on, especially at the beginning, but he just, for whatever reason, just kept being drawn to her. And another thing with Miles that I will say is, like, in the beginning of the book, this man is someone who deliberately chose to go to boarding school because he was having such a hard time really making friends and being like his own person back in like his public school, like in his area and everything. So he decides to go to boarding school so he can pretty much have a fresh start and like and find his grade, perhaps, whatever the fuck that means. But this book instead, like, yes, he finds friends and everything, but like it's one of those things that, like, to me, I don't think this is a good book to show to teenagers because the main character, again, is someone who has been struggling to really find his group of people, to find his friends, and then he does befriend his roommate. But that group of people, like his roommate and then his group of people, are pretty much, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it, are bad influences. Like, he got into drinking, he got into smoking, he got into doing like these pranks and everything, and all of that was so he can fit in and be along with like his group of, like, his new group of friends and everything. And like, if the book had done this interesting thing where Miles, right, that's his name, yes, where Miles was going along with the things, but he was being very hesitant because he, maybe that, like, to him consciously, like, he's like, no, this isn't me, I shouldn't be doing this is wrong, blah blah blah. But like, he has this deep desire to really make friends, and like, these are the people that will be friends with him. So he feels pressured to doing this stuff. Like, I feel like that could have been such a deeper and stronger story, and especially if the ending result was him really realizing that they would have been friends with him, if even if he didn't do that stuff. Like, if he had tagged along but didn't do the stuff that he did, they would have been okay with it. And again, that is a whole different story than what this book is. But this book, i I don't like it. And again, it's one of those books that I know a lot of people like. It got a whole award, but I just don't think it's a good message to be putting out to young kids, because even though drinking and smoking and all this stuff has become more common, I would assume, it's still not something positive. But yeah, ultimately, I just wish there was more depth to the book, to its themes that I was trying to explore, more characterization. Because again, the same thing that I said about Paper Towns, I will say about this one. I didn't care about the characters, and that is a shame, because at least in Paper Towns, all the characters are alive. In this book, you have Alaska, who actually does die in the book, and even though yes, death is sad, and I was like still sad that she had passed away, especially in that form and everything. And there's like this mystery surrounding like her death. I, when she was alive, couldn't care about her. Like there was, I guess, too much mystery in her life for me to really grasp her as a character, for me to be invested in her journey. And I wish we had gotten more. Like we get a little bit, but I wish we had gotten more, because then that would have been piquing my interest, so I can be invested in Miles's journey of trying to figure out what happened to Alaska. All right, so looking back at my notes, I also mentioned how Miles pretty much treated his first ever girlfriend, and again, he's young, so I can give him a little bit of grace, especially since again he's coming from a position where he didn't have any friends. He pretty much has this social awkwardness and doesn't really have like knowledge with like social cues and all that stuff. But the way he treated her, I I didn't like. And like yes, he apologizes and everything, but like still it's to the point where again he's infatuated with this girl who he just met, and she has a boyfriend, and she makes it clear that she has a boyfriend, and she always talks about him, and he just keeps getting jealous, and instead of like trying to move on, he still thinks about her. And I'm not going through that rabbit hole again, but I didn't like the book. I didn't like it. I think I'm gonna end it there, because I don't necessarily want to keep ranting when I think I've already said most of what I have to say. I did check back my notes, and I did give this book a 2.5 stars, because it does have some aspects that I thought could have worked well if they were executed differently. But overall, I just didn't like the way the book was written. I don't like the characters. I don't like the overall plot. But it does have, at the very least, a foundational setting with its plots and events that I think could have worked if things were just done differently. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it right there. If you read this book, go ahead and leave comments of what you thought about the book, even if you did like the book, and if it's a 5 star for you. Like, I would like to have that conversation of like why you liked it so much, because maybe there are things that you thought that I didn't think, but to me, that's just where I ended up with the book. And unfortunately, since I read it in high school, and specifically remember not really liking it, and I read it again now and still not liking it. It's I don't think my mind is necessarily going to be changed, but I could think of different things in a different perspective based on other people's perception of things. But yeah, I think I'm just leave it right there. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.